Good morning, Gary.
Good morning.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling excellent.
It's another
beautiful day.
Another
Yeah.
beautiful spring day on March
A
26th.
March what?
26th?
26th.
Yes, yes.
And the cherry trees are still in bloom.
Yeah, and the
The
apples.
apples are beginning to bloom.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Birds.
This is the springtime of year.
It's very beautiful. Is that your favorite season?
Oh, I don't know. I like them all.
You do, huh?
Yeah.
Even the cold snow, winter?
Yes, I do. That's really nice.
I know. Yeah. I have never made it here during the snow season.
It's a lot of trouble. You can't get out.
Really?
Yeah.
The cars cannot.
At a certain point, you can't drive a car anymore.
So you're just stuck here?
Yeah, I've spent here 7 or 8 days sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's
So
pretty
I always.
tough. That's pretty tough.
Well, it's good. You eat up all the stuff in the
Fridge?
in the refrigerator and in the pantry that you should eat.
Right. Is that how you grew up, this kind of lifestyle?
It wasn't as cold in Seattle
Okay.
on the farm as it is here in the winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you describe the farm where you grew up a little bit?
Farm was north of Seattle
Right.
in the Ponderosa, in the Douglas fir zone
Ooh, okay.
of woods and
Okay.
forests.
Right.
Gentle ridges and slopes, and we had a stream in the back end of our land that was flowing to the north,
Okay.
and eventually would end up in a lake called Lake Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We were halfway between Seattle and Bothell,
Okay.
Bothel,
Right.
Bothell, and we cleared enough land to have a cow pasture.
Wow. Your dad and your mom created
Yeah, it was somewhat clear when we bought it.
Okay.
And then he put in the fence for the cows.
Okay.
He worked very hard.
Your dad was a veteran, correct?
Well, he had been briefly a veteran as a very young man in World War I.
Okay. Right.
At the time of World War I.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So we were about a mile from a little town where you could shop for groceries and where the public bus stopped.
Okay. Did you have your own car at that time?
Eventually, we got our own car.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't even remember what it was now.
Wow. But you raised your own chickens?
Well, then we got chickens.
Right.
And we went up. My father was always building things. He was a very good carpenter.
Okay.
So he built a barn that would have a place for a couple of cows down below.
Okay.
And for up to, I think we had about 50 chickens at one time.
Wow,
On the
50.
second, oh yeah,
Ooh,
I
that's a
had
lot.
them. I was the guy who took care of the chickens.
Wow, okay.
On the second floor.
Right.
And eventually we had 2 acres of fenced pasture.
Wow.
For the cows.
Wow.
2 acres is a lot of land.
Right.
Yeah.
I grew up in a kind of similar way.
Yeah.
I was born in Shanghai, and then my father was part of the East China Sea Navy fleet, and then the whole family moved to the island in the East China Sea.
What was the name of the island?
舟山群岛. 舟山群岛. Yeah, and it was China's biggest fishing island area. And so I grew up with a lot of fish.
Okay.
And we were very poor, and so I grew my own vegetables and raised my own chickens.
Oh,
and
you did, no?
Yeah. I had, chicken coop and had about 20 chickens, not as many as yours, and and I had to make everything with bare hands, basically. Of course, with bare hands.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and carry food, walking like miles, the grocery like potatoes or cabbage or rice and also coal, right?
Coal?
Yeah, coal.
For
we
fuel.
burn for fuel on my back. The weight is heavier than my tiny body. And I remember it was pretty heavy, you know, and yeah, that's how I grew up. But I'm very, very grateful for that kind of hard labor and that I work with my own hands to make food, grow food, and cook the food.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I'm the oldest, so I have.
You were the oldest.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about growing up, like, you know, on the farm, making your own food, and you know, how did it affect you as a person, as a poet?
I didn't cook.
Okay.
My mother did the cooking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I washed the dishes.
You did. Were you a good dishwasher?
Of course. Because it's easy.
Right. Right.
It's not demanding.
Well, now you're a good cook.
I don't cook much anymore because all the women I know like to cook.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so our past kind of began in different places, but had very similar experiences, right, growing up.
Right, and then when I started going to school more,
right,
learning to read and so forth, I couldn't take as much care of my chickens.
What happened to the chickens?
Well, we kept on growing. I kept on raising chickens and feeding chickens.
Right.
Then I sold eggs to the neighbors.
Right, in your little bicycle?
And I had a bicycle, and I delivered eggs, and I delivered milk from our cows.
Wow.
We had 2 Guernsey cows.
Okay.
That were good milkers.
2 cows?
Yes.
Wow. Who took care of the cows?
My father and I.
Okay, so you also did that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're the delivery boy.
I delivered the milk, yeah,
right.
on my bicycle.
And eggs.
And eggs, yeah.
Right.
I had a regular set of customers for eggs and milk.
How many of them do you remember?
I don't remember, 7 or 8.
Wow, okay. Was that enough to provide for the family?
Well, it was enough to get rid of all the eggs and all the milk.
Okay.
That we wanted to after we ate as much as we wanted.
Right.
And we didn't eat a whole lot of eggs or anything, but we had just enough.
Okay.
And sold the rest.
Okay. So that you could buy other necessities for the family? The egg money and milk money.
Oh, I don't know. There must have been some other money from somewhere.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. So how did you get from a farmer's boy, a delivery boy, and how did you walk onto the path of poetry?
Well, World War II.
Okay.
When World War II came, we had to sell the farm and move to Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And there were more jobs. The war created work.
What kind of work?
All kinds. But my father, because of his background and from World War I, was given some kind of a job by the government to be an advisor and a helper to returning veteran soldiers from the war.
Right.
And so he actually was an advisor to veterans.
Okay.
For a number of years, 4 or 5 years. And he ended up being moved again to San Francisco,
right,
where he worked helping them with their college educations.
Okay.
Till he retired.
Right.
Yeah.
But what influenced you to decide that you'd like to go to have, because I can imagine growing up and working on the farm, right? You didn't have opportunity to read or to get, have access to a lot of books.
We had public library.
You used the public library.
Yeah.
Is that the certificate you got on the wall?
Yes.
How old were you?
7 or 8.
That you were living in Seattle at the time.
Yeah.
Is that the Seattle Public Library?
Yeah.
You are luckier than me because when I was about 9 or 10 years old, the Cultural Revolution began.
And they didn't let you do that.
And all the books
were being taped. Yeah.
Right. And all the books were burned. And all the school closed.
Well, the books weren't burned. Oh, you?
Yeah, me. So
Yeah.
I ended up trying to find books like by sneaking into sealed libraries and also trading books illegally underground with my friends.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And
so they were really down on books.
Oh yeah, we burned a lot of books during the Cultural Revolution, and but that gave me a very different kind of education because I did not go through the regular public school education system.
That's different.
Right, so I had to work very hard to make food, right, to grow food. Then at midnight, I will take out the hidden books and get a flashlight and read books.
Well, our situation was different in several ways.
Right.
And one of them is that my mother loved reading.
Oh, okay. Where did she get books?
And we got them from the public library.
Wow.
Every couple of weeks we would get new books from the library.
What kind of books did you read? Do you remember?
I was reading everything.
Okay, everything. Okay.
Whatever I chose.
Okay.
Novels and books about the farms and the mountains and stories and history.
Okay.
But they were from the children's section.
Children's section. Okay.
Yeah.
So we were talking about books.
Yeah.
Right? And so you got awarded for reading books in the summer in the Seattle Public Library.
Well, that's hardly an award. They just gave me that little
certificate
to put on the wall if I wanted to.
Right. Well, that's a beautiful one. I took a lot of photos of that.
Oh, did you really?
Kai told me that's like your most prized award, actually.
Well, somehow I kept it.
Yes. And
I had it in my office in Davis.
Okay. You kept it there,
in the university, it was on the wall.
Well, that means you really prized it yourself, too.
Well, I wanted to prove that I was educated.
You were very educated. Well, my education took a very different path.
Yeah.
You got awarded for reading books, right?
5 books when I was 7.
That's amazing. Well, I got beaten for reading books in China.
So that gave you a good personality.
That's right, because I was very stubborn. Well, most people would just give up. Right?
Yeah, well, obviously, you're the sort of person that should do what you're doing.
That's right. I always, like, the more pressure and punishment, the more I wanted to do it.
Good. That's what I said. Beat up on the kids.
Well, oh my God. Well, it's not very womanly, right? This kind of personality, but I don't care.
Well, who knows what womanly is?
Well, I've been told many times, like, Ping, you don't behave like a woman, especially you don't behave like a Chinese woman.
Well, that can be true, but you do behave like a woman.
Okay, well, thank you, though. I got your approval.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Yeah. So, when did you start writing poetry seriously?
Well, I don't know when it was serious, but I was always making up little rhymes to myself.
You did? As a child?
Even as a kid.
Right.
But, a lot of kids do that.
Yes, it's a natural gift, isn't it?
Well, also we have these children's books of poetry that are full of little things like that.
Yes, nursery rhymes.
Nursery rhymes.
Yes.
And we always got those when I was a little kid.
Okay.
At the library, or maybe we had a book or two.
Was that your choice often? You pick up those
books? Well, I don't. When I first went, I was sort of steered around by my mother in the library, but later, very soon, when I was 6 or 7, 7 or 8, I just picked out the books myself.
Do you remember which section is your favorite section?
I tried all sections.
Okay, history.
I can't even remember it now. I read 1 or 2 books every week.
Okay.
For years.
What books you read? You still remember?
I don't remember any of them specifically.
Right.
Except some books by, I don't quite remember his name at the moment, but books about Native Americans, about Indians.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and some nature books.
You already inclined
Yes, I was.
to that.
Well,
right?
I was very fascinated by the books about Native Americans.
Okay.
And I thought very soon when I was 10 or 11, that's the life I want.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. The native way, the old way.
The old way, yeah.
The old way.
Well, the way close to nature.
That's right.
Knowing animals, knowing bushes and trees.
Right.
And learning how to use them all.
Right.
It was a very...
And not wasting them.
Yeah, it was a very practical outlook.
Yes.
That I had.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I went through very similar, you know. We did not have much at all, right? And I had one set of clothing for each season.
Oh, I see.
And we have very little food, so we have to make use of everything possible to keep living. And I had to steal some books from sealed libraries, and you know, and it was dangerous to read those banned books for the family, right? And the neighborhood too. So when my parents captured me reading those banned books, they beat me up like with laundry bags or, you know, iron pokes. They broke a lot of laundry bags on me, actually, you know. But I kept going, and, you know, and I educated myself through those stolen books or underground books.
Underground books.
Underground books, yeah. And then I started writing poetry by walking into a wrong classroom in Brooklyn, Long Island University. And I was supposed to take 18th century English novel.
Oh, I see, as a literature student.
Right, it was supposed to be a literature class, and I walked right into Louis Wash's creative writing class.
No kidding.
Do you know? I'm sure you
I know
Louis
him.
Wash,
Yeah.
right? And he was looking very curious, you know, long hair, and you know, he had a cold. He was wiping his running nose, and so I thought, who's this? You know, very different from American professor image I had, right? But I was curious. I sat down and I wrote a story about chicken and duck.
About what?
Chicken and duck.
Chickens and
my
duck.
pets, right?
Yeah.
I, you know, raising chickens, right? And when I was a farmer in the village.
Okay.
And Professor Wash wrote on my story that you should start writing a novel. So that was like the whacking stick from Zen Master. And I said, oh, that's why I came to America, right? And so that is actually, that writing workshop was the only class I took about writing, right? And then Lou started taking me to a poetry project in St. Mark's Church. And then
in St. Mark's.
St. Mark's, right. And then Allen Ginsberg was organizing the first American Chinese Poetry Festival in 1988. And they were looking for an interpreter and translator, and I became Alan's assistant.
Oh, how nice!
Yeah, and that's when I met where I met you in New York.
Okay.
At the Modern Art Museum.
Okay.
Event.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm still talking to you since then.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my path to poetry. You know.
That's pretty straight.
Zigzagging, like your mountain, the Yuba River mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. It's very direct.
You think?
Well, yeah. Look, you didn't waste 4 or 5 years going to literature classes reading novels.
Well, that's true. But I did do a PhD reading novels and poetry at NYU.
That's a different thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And when I started the PhD program, all the New York poets friends told me, oh, stop doing that. You will stop writing poetry. I said, no, I won't. You know?
Well, good for you, because a lot of them do.
Really?
Well, when you start doing that kind of work. For one thing, you can get paid for it, so if you're going to try to get a job and make a little money to live, you'll keep doing it.
Doing poetry or?
No, doing the kind of teaching that pays.
Right. Well, I didn't teach my comparative literature degree.
Yeah.
I actually got a job teaching poetry and
Well,
creative
so
writing.
there you are. You taught poetry instead of literature. A lot
Creative
of people,
writing.
And creative writing. A lot of people that start out thinking they're going to do creative writing just end up doing literature.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
I was hired as a poet.
Well, a lot of
creative
people
writing.
might get hired as a poet, but they end up teaching literature.
Is that what you did when you taught at
I never
UC
taught
Davis?
literature. I taught anthropology.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you teach poetry, creative writing at UC Davis?
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
But by that time, especially, I only taught on the graduate level.
Okay. Yes.
I didn't teach undergraduates.
Right.
And all of the students were already working hard for poetry degrees.
Okay.
And so my way of teaching poetry, I don't know. It may be that you wouldn't think it was really teaching poetry.
By whom?
Me.
well, the purpose of this conversation was just like I wanted to explore, like how we grew up on, like on the opposite side of the Pacific,
I
right?
never talked about that with my students.
Okay.
How we grew up. I never talked about that.
Right, but I think
But we got into too many other things.
Right.
That's just too elementary.
No, nothing is too elementary.
Well, they thought it was.
Yeah, but I don't think so.
Well, no, but you want
Right.
to understand why we get started.
Right.
But we already thought we knew why we got started.
That's the problem, right? Is it?
Well, I don't know if it's a problem or not.
Okay.
But I just got into, really working on people's manuscripts.
Okay. Are they
Because
good? Were they good?
They were, no, but it's all right. We really worked hard at it.
Who's your best student? Do you still remember?
I don't remember.
Who's your worst student? Do you
I don't
remember? Well, you are just being very diplomatic, I think.
No, I went through lots of students.
Okay.
Many years. You can't remember very many of them.
Right.
I would remember them if I saw them now.
Right, right. You had a Chinese student who became a poet, and he kept asking me to send you his love. Mi Jiayan,
Who is he?
Mr. Mi.
Hmm?
Me, M-I, me.
M-I, me.
Me, yeah.
A male?
A male, yeah.
I don't remember him.
Yeah, but that's okay.
What was his first name?
Jiayan.
Jiayan?
Yeah, he may have an English name. I don't know.
Maybe I called him by his English name.
Probably, yeah. Anyway, so, you grew up in America. I grew up on the East China Sea, on the island, right? And your father was a veteran, and my father was also a Navy captain, right? And, you got awarded for reading books. I got beaten up for reading books.
Well, I wasn't much of an award.
Well, that's a prize, a certificate.
And they never talked about it again.
Okay, but you kept it.
Well, because I liked it.
That's award.
But I mean, there wasn't any.
Right.
Nobody announced it.
Right.
Even my classmates never knew about it.
Right. But I know.
Well, that's because I put it up.
Right. And it's very beautiful and very meaningful to me.
So it's great. I must have put it up because sooner or later you would come and see it.
I know. You already foresaw it. But we both somehow got onto the path, walked into the path of poetry.
Yeah.
And pretty straightforward, as you said, right?
Yeah.
And what kind of force?
Not so straightforward. I did all kinds of work.
Right, I know. Yeah. But that kind of work led us somehow to do the kind of work we're doing now, right? And live this kind of lifestyle, right? Do you think it's related, that hard physical,
I wouldn't say one way or the other.
Okay. But you did mention that the books you read as child made you want to live like the old native way.
Yeah, but it did not make me want to be a poet.
Okay, what made you want to be a poet?
I just did it.
Okay, so there's some mysterious force that
Oh,
led you
it
to
was-
poetry.
How do you talk about what you want to talk about?
I don't know.
Well, you
Yeah.
might write a poem.
Okay, okay.
So I would write a poem, but nobody told me to.
Something told you to.
Well, yeah, but I told myself to.
Okay, so what part of Gary that told
I
Gary
don't know. I never
to
even
write a
asked.
poem?
I don't know.
Okay, okay. Well, for me, I walked into the wrong classroom.
Oh, yeah?
Then I did the translation for Allen Ginsberg, and
Well,
I
that
translated.
was good.
I translated some of your poems, and I remember that was Rip Rap and Axe Handle.
Okay,
Right?
well, see, I don't
Into
remember
Chinese, right?
I just started, writing things down.
Okay.
Or saying things and then writing them down when I thought about it.
Okay, and do you still do that? Do you still do that these days?
I've got lots of notebooks.
Okay, okay.
And sometimes I might have the beginnings of a poem in a notebook.
Do you think poetry lives in everybody?
I don't know.
You don't
Well,
know?
it depends on what you say, what you mean by poetry.
What do you think is poetry?
Poetry is playing with language.
Okay,
Just playing.
right.
Not necessarily so serious.
Yes.
And then also it sometimes is a mode of self-expression for something that's very difficult for you
Yes.
or painful.
Right.
And you might just be doing it for yourself, not to
Yes.
show somebody else.
Right. Right. Right.
There's
Right.
a number of reasons. And so what are we calling poetry?
Expression.
No.
Play.
It
Transformation.
can be any of those.
Transcendence. You
It
need
can
to
be
do-
any of those.
Right. Right.
But there's a clear difference between straightforward, logical, practical prose,
Yes.
and and the next difference is what people call verses or poems that are predictable and sort of reasonable.
Right.
And then there are unpredictable things that are just thrown out by emotional and imaginative parts of your mind. And for some people, that's all they ever do.
Right.
But for some people, they can take those and refine them,
Yes.
and they might make a poem.
Yes.
But they don't necessarily know it's a poem even.
Right. Right.
That's more like what I'm saying.
Yes. I think you did it very nicely. Beautifully.
Well, I'm sure I did it,
Yeah.
because I never wrote a
And
poem.
you're a master.
I never wrote a poem exactly to be a poet. But then once I spent some time with Kenneth Rexroth, and I realized he didn't do it quite right. And so it made me want to do it better.
Okay. Did Jack Kerouac write poetry? I think he did.
Well, it kind of did.
Right.
You have to make a distinction for your own uses between poetry and verse.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
He wrote verse.
sometimes he wrote verse,
Right.
and sometimes his verse also was poetry.
Do you think his novels, they are strictly prose, you think?
Oh, they're just good stories.
They're good stories.
But, I mean, he's got a great, crazy imagination,
Yes.
and he doesn't hold back.
Is that the key to write well, you
It
think?
depends.
Okay.
There's all kinds of novels. What makes a good novel? Well, take one novel you think is good, and try to explain why it's good.
You can't really. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult because it's an organic whole.
Well, so you can say certain things about certain novels,
Right.
and you can say that's really what makes it good.
Right.
But you can't necessarily expect that from another novel.
It's true.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it gives literary criticism.
So I don't spend my time thinking about literary criticism.
No. Right. Right. You just do it.
I just do it.
Yeah.
And,
You wrote quite a bit, you know.
and I think about, do I really think it's any good or not? And I leave that to myself.
Yes.
To make that decision.
Right. Well, I think we can stop here now. We talked, just chit-chat about our different paths and how we somehow ended up on kind of similar paths, right? From different places. And I hope Gary's story will inspire some young men, young people to, you know, I think poetry is also a path of the internal path to learn more about who we are on this earth and why we are here.
Well, there's various ways to learn that.
That's right. Poetry is a good way to do that.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe they should sit.
Okay. Well, Kai tried. He thinks it's torturous.
Well, that's good.
Right. So he became a scientist and mountain climber, you know, athlete, right? And,
I don't know. He's not done yet.
He's not done. It's true. Yeah, it's true. Very true. He may become a great poet someday.
So what?
So what? I think that's the good way to end.
No, that's not necessarily a good way to end.
To end? So what's a good way to end?
There's all kinds of ways.
Okay. Like what?
A good mountain climber.
A good mountain climber. Yes.
A good storyteller.
Yes.
A good storyteller is a very special thing.
It is it's a special gift.
It's a special gift.
Not everyone can actually do it. You know?
No, it's just like poetry.
You are a good storyteller. You told some really good stories today for us.
I could do better.
Okay.
But I don't try.
Okay.
Often.
Well, that's when you tell the best.
And that's because people don't ask me to.
Okay.
You have to be asked.
I have been asking you. You did a great job today.
Of what story?
Your childhood story, your poetry story.
Oh, that was just the beginning. I didn't tell you some of the real stories.
Oh, can we do it? Can we save it for the next one? Well, thank you so much.
No, you the kind of stories that I like to tell you can't tape.
Okay, good. That's fine. Sorry. All right.